What does the world see when they look at Emma Vance? They see the perfect polished wife of Jason Thorne, the real estate titan. They see a woman who hosts flawless dinners, remembers every birthday, and smiles silently behind her billionaire husband. Jason called her his greatest asset in public. In private, he called her decoration. And when he found a newer decoration, he filed for divorce, labeling her as useless on his way out. He left her with nothing. He thought he had erased her. What he actually did was unleash the most brilliant strategic mind the country had ever seen. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about a hostile takeover. The penthouse at 15 Central Park West wasn't a home. It was a statement. It was 8,000 square feet of Arctic white marble glass walls overlooking a kingdom of lights and art so expensive it was rumored to be insured by a small nation. This was the domain of Jason Thorne, founder and CEO of Thorne Legacy Properties. A man who didn't just build skyscrapers, he carved his name into the skyline. And in this kingdom, Emma Vance was the silent, flawless manager. To the outside world, she was the enviable Mrs. Thorne. To Jason, she was an accessory he had acquired a decade ago, one that had in his mind depreciated in value. "Emma, the Callahans are at table 3, Jason would murmur at a gala, not even looking at her. "He needs another scotch. She's allergic to shellfish. Handle it." And she would. Emma handled everything. She wasn't just his wife. She was his unsalaried 24/7 executive assistant, social strategist, and emotional buffer. She was the one who remembered the names of his investors' children. She was the one who reviewed his quarterly reports at 2 a.m., catching a decimal point error by the CFO that would have cost the company $8 million. She was the one who ghost-wrote the charismatic off-the-cuff speech he gave at the Global Innovators Summit. Jason, of course, took the credit. "She's good at parties." He'd laugh to his friends over brandy. "Keeps the house running. Beyond that, not a single ambitious bone in her body. Useless, really, in the real world." Emma heard the whispers. She saw the condescending smiles. She was the quiet, unassuming arts major she'd actually double majored in computational linguistics who had married well. But Emma had a secret. In a small windowless room behind the laundry, a space Jason dismissed as her hobby closet, was a workstation that looked like it belonged to Mission Control. 3 monitors, a custom-built server rack, and whiteboards covered in algorithms so complex they looked like a new language. For 2 years, Emma had been building Aura. It started as a private project, a way to keep her mind sharp. She was fascinated by inefficiency. Jason's company, for all its bluster, was a logistical nightmare. They hemorrhaged money on supply chain management using an archaic system Emma herself had quietly designed for him in their first year of marriage, a fact he'd long forgotten. Aura was her solution. It was a predictive logistics platform and AI that didn't just track shipments. It anticipated global events, port strikes, weather patterns, material shortages, and rerouted supply chains before a crisis hit. It was brilliant, it was revolutionary, and it was hers. The breaking point came at the annual Thorne Foundation benefit. Emma had spent 3 months orchestrating the $10 million event. Every flower, every seating chart, every press release was curated by her. Jason took the stage, his custom-tailored suit catching the light. He beamed, accepting the Humanitarian of the Year award. "I have to thank my incredible team," he boomed. "And of course, my wife Emma." He gestured to her, and the spotlight found her at the table. She smiled a strained, practiced expression. "She is the inspiration for all this," Jason continued, "proving that even those who aren't boardroom material can contribute in their own way. She's the best event planner a man could ask for." The room applauded politely. It was a pat on the head delivered with a microphone. Later that evening, Emma was cornered by the bar by a strikingly beautiful woman in a crimson dress. Her name was Serafina Rothschild. She was new money, a venture capitalist with a reputation for sharp teeth. "You have the patience of a saint, Emma." Serafina said, her voice a low purr. She swirled her champagne. Jason is a force. It must be exhausting standing in a shadow that big. Emma gave a tight smile. I prefer the shade. Serafina hummed, unconvinced. Some of us are built for the sun. As the night ended, Emma watched Jason laughing with Serafina by the valet. His laugh was different, louder, more genuine than the one he used with her. He put his hand on the small of Serafina's back, and it wasn't a polite gesture. Emma felt the marble floor drop out from under her. She retreated to her hobby closet that night. The glow of the monitors was her only comfort. She typed, and as the code for Aura compiled, a new line of thought began to compile in her mind. Aura wasn't just a project anymore. It was an escape plan. The end came faster than a guillotine. It wasn't a fight. Jason didn't do messy. He did corporate restructuring. 3 days after the benefit, Emma was woken not by her alarm, but by the sound of voices in the living room. She walked out, her silk robe clutched tight, to find Jason and 2 men in severe black suits. One of them she recognized with a jolt of ice was Harrison Kane, Jason's lead attorney. Emma, you're up. Good, Jason said, not looking up from his phone. He was already dressed, cufflinks gleaming. Jason, what's going on? It's 6 a.m. Jason finally looked at her. His eyes were flat, devoid of any warmth. They were the eyes he used to terminate a bad contract. The marriage isn't working, Emma. It hasn't been for a long time. I'm filing for divorce. Emma's breath hitched. What? Just like that, after the benefit, Jason, we can... No, we can't. He cut her off. This is a formality. Harrison has the papers. The lawyer stepped forward and placed a thick, leather-bound document on the marble coffee table. It landed with a soft, heavy thud. As you know, Emma, Harrison Kane said, his voice a dry monotone, you signed a prenuptial agreement on March 12, 2014. Yes, I know, Emma stammered. Jason has been more than generous, the lawyer continued, tapping the document. He is offering a one-time lump sum payment of $500,000 contingent on your immediate vacating of the premises and a comprehensive lifetime non-disclosure agreement. Emma's head spun. $500,000. It sounded like a lot, but in their world it was what Jason spent on watches in a year. It was an insult. Jason, this is our life, she pleaded, her voice trembling. 10 years. I helped you build this. The strategy for the Hudson Yards bid. That was my research. The original logistics code. Jason finally laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound. Your research, Emma, you organized my files. You made coffee. Let's not be delusional. You are a cost, not an asset. You have been useless to the company's bottom line for a decade. Useless. The word hit her like a slap. Look around you, Jason said, gesturing to the penthouse. This is my life. You were just living in it. Now you're not. Serafina will be moving in next week. Serafina, the woman in the red dress, the snake in the garden. You're leaving me. For her. I'm upgrading Emma, Jason said, adjusting his tie. Serafina is my equal. She's a partner. She understands the real world. You were a lovely phase. But it's over. I won't sign this. Emma whispered, defiance flickering. I'll fight this. Harrison Kane sighed as if bored. Fight it with what, Mrs. Thorne? Your joint accounts were frozen an hour ago. The credit cards you hold are supplementary to Jason's primary account, which have been canceled. The hobby closet you work in, all that equipment was purchased by Thorne Legacy. It stays. As of 9 a.m. this morning, you have no access to Jason's assets. This $500,000 is all you will ever see. He was trapping her. He was locking her out of her own life, her own work. The server. Emma's mind raced to Aura. The data. Wiped, Jason said simply. Company policy. Can't have proprietary data leaving the building. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. Aura. 2 years of her life's work. Gone. Wiped. He hadn't even known what he was destroying. He just did it to be cruel. "You have until noon," Jason said, picking up his briefcase. "My security will escort you out." He walked to the door, pausing. "Don't try to contact me. All future correspondence goes through Harrison. Goodbye, Emma." He left. He didn't look back. Emma stood alone in the marble cavern, the divorce papers staring at her from the table. He had taken everything. Her home, her money, her dignity, and worst of all, her work. He'd called her useless. He'd left her with nothing. But Jason Thorne, for all his business acumen, had made one catastrophic mistake. He assumed that because he had wiped the server, he had wiped the idea. He forgot that Emma was the source code. She walked into the laundry room past the now dark hobby closet. She picked up her personal laptop from a charging port, a simple, unremarkable machine he'd never bothered to look at. She had emailed herself the core Aura kernel a week prior. A backup. Just in case. Jason hadn't just divorced his useless wife. He had just created his biggest competitor. The 3 months that followed were a blur of beige walls and instant ramen. Emma Vance went from a penthouse on Central Park West to a 400-square-foot fifth-floor walk-up in Astoria, Queens. The check for $500,000 felt like monopoly money. After paying taxes and the retainer for a divorce lawyer who looked at her with pity, she was left with barely enough to survive for a year. The NDA was ironclad. She couldn't speak a word about Jason Serafina or her contributions to Thorne Legacy. She was a ghost. Jason's reach was long. Every job she applied for, even low-level data analysis roles, resulted in a polite, swift rejection. "You're just not the right fit." She was blacklisted. Emma sat on her second-hand sofa, her laptop, her only valuable possession, glowing in the dark. She had a choice: fade into obscurity or build. She chose to build. She pulled up the Aura kernel. It was the heart, but it needed a body. She needed a partner. She needed someone who hated the corporate world as much as she now did. She made a call. "Marcus Cole?" His voice was rough, like he'd been gargling gravel. "Marcus, it's Emma. Emma Vance. Well, just Emma now." There was a long pause. "Emma Thorne. Wow, that's a voice from the dead. What's it been 12 years since the MIT lab?" Marcus Cole was the only person who had ever truly seen her brilliance. He was a programming genius, a digital anarchist who believed code could change the world. He dropped out 2 semesters before graduation to avoid selling his soul. He now ran a tiny, failing IT consultancy out of a garage in Brooklyn. "I need your help, Marcus," she said. She met him at a 24-hour diner. She laid it all out. The divorce, the useless comment, the blacklisting. And then she opened her laptop. She showed him Aura. Marcus stared at the screen, his half-eaten burger forgotten. He scrolled through the code, his eyes widening. "Ellie," he whispered, using her old nickname. This is predictive modeling on a level I've never seen. This isn't just logistics, this is a crystal ball. This could disrupt everything. Amazon, FedEx, the entire global supply chain." He wiped the server, Emma said, her voice tight. "Called it proprietary data and trashed it. But he didn't know I had the kernel." Marcus looked up, and a slow, dangerous grin spread across his face. "He called you useless." He pushed his plate away. "Okay, I'm in. Let's go burn his empire to the ground." They incorporated the next day AuraLogix. They worked out of his garage, fueled by stale coffee and righteous anger. Emma was the architect rebuilding Aura from the kernel up, making it stronger, faster, more intuitive. Marcus was the engineer building the infrastructure, the security, and the user interface. For 6 months they coded. Emma sold her jewelry, the last vestiges of her old life, to pay for server space. They were building a multi-billion-dollar platform on a shoestring budget. Then they hit the wall funding. They needed to scale. They needed a sales team. They needed to get out of the garage. They started the pitch deck circuit. It was a disaster. The first VC, a slick man in a Patagonia vest, barely looked up from his phone. So let me get this straight. You're a divorced housewife. And you, he gestured to Marcus, are an IT guy. And you built an AI that's better than Google's right. The second one was worse. It's a cute algorithm, Mrs. Thorne. Oh, Ms. Vance, sorry. But we're just not investing in the jilted wife narrative right now. They received 27 rejections. Their money was gone. They were 2 weeks from having to sell their servers for parts. On a desperate final attempt, Emma emailed a name she'd found on a top 50 women in tech list. This woman wasn't a VC. She was a legend, a recluse. The first female engineer at Intel who had built a quiet empire and disappeared. Her name was Diana Hayes. Emma didn't expect a reply. She got one 10 minutes later. My office. Tomorrow. 8 a.m. Don't be late. Diana Hayes's office was the top floor of the Chrysler Building. The woman herself was in her late 60s with sharp gray eyes and an aura of absolute authority. Emma and Marcus had 15 minutes. Emma didn't talk about the market cap or the user acquisition strategy. She talked about the code. She put the algorithm on the screen and explained its elegance. Diana watched, silent. It predicts a dockworker strike in Rotterdam 2 weeks before the union votes based on cafeteria price hike chatter in their private forums. Emma explained, her voice gaining strength. It's already rerouting 50,000 units of medical supplies through Antwerp, saving the client $4 million. Who's the client? Diana asked. A small nonprofit we're running the beta for. For free, Marcus chimed in. Diana Hayes stood up and walked to the window. Jason Thorne, she said. It wasn't a question. Emma tensed. Yes. I knew his father. Arrogant fool. Jason's worse. He thinks spreadsheets are a substitute for vision. She turned back. He called you useless, didn't he? Emma was stunned. How did you? I know the type. Diana said, a cold fire in her eyes. Men like Jason Thorne don't divorce women who are useful to them. They divorce women they're afraid of. She walked to her desk and tapped an intercom. Janet, wire $10 million to a new entity called AuraLogix. And clear my schedule for the afternoon. We're building a board of directors. Emma and Marcus just stared. Well, don't just stand there, Diana snapped, though her eyes were smiling. We have work to do. And you, she pointed at Emma, you need a new suit. You're a CEO now. The injection of $10 million from Diana Hayes wasn't just gasoline on the fire, it was rocket fuel. AuraLogix exploded. They moved from the garage to a sleek, minimalist office in Soho. They hired the best data scientists Marcus knew. Coders who, like him, had been rejected by the big tech firms for not being team players. They were loyal, brilliant, and hungry. Emma was a natural leader. She wasn't a boss like Jason ruling by fear. She was a director orchestrating the complex symphony of code strategy and sales. She was relentless, working 20-hour days, but she never asked anything of her team. She wasn't doing herself. Their first major client was a mid-level shipping company, Swift Post Logistics, which was getting crushed by its larger competitors. In 6 months using Aura, Swift Post reduced its fuel costs by 30% and improved its delivery time accuracy to 99.8%. They didn't just survive, they started poaching clients from the big dogs. The industry press caught on. TechCrunch ran a story, The Aura Effect, How a Mystery Startup is Rewiring Logistics. Forbes followed, The Oracle of Shipping, Who is AuraLogix. Emma stayed in the shadows. The company's official spokesperson was Marcus. The CEO was listed as E. Vance. In a world obsessed with founder worship, Emma's anonymity was her greatest weapon. She let the technology speak for itself. Meanwhile, 50 blocks north, the empire of Thorne Legacy Properties was beginning to show cracks. Jason had won the massive Hudson Yards West development bid, the largest project in New York City history. It was his crowning achievement. and it was a logistical nightmare. "What do you mean the steel is stuck in Hamburg?" Jason roared at his COO, a man named Robert Miller. "The port strike, sir," Miller stammered. "No one saw it coming. It's going to set us back at least 2 months. The penalties are astronomical." "And the concrete. Why are we paying a 40% premium?" "The supplier in Mexico had a plant shut down. We had to reroute from Canada. It's just a run of bad luck, Jason." But it wasn't bad luck. It was an archaic system. The one Emma had built a decade ago, which Jason had never bothered to update. It was reactive, not predictive. Jason, now married to Serafina, was more stressed than ever. His new wife was not a quiet, supportive partner. She was a shark. She had taken a seat on his board as part of the marriage merger, and she questioned his every move. "This is bleeding money, Jason," Serafina said coolly during a board meeting, tapping her stylus on the losing financial report. "Your legacy system is a joke. You're building a 21st century city with 20th century tools." "We're handling it," Jason snapped. "No, you're not," Serafina countered. "You're losing millions a day. The board is concerned. I suggest you find a solution. Yesterday." Jason was furious, humiliated. He instructed his team to find a fix. "I don't care what it costs. Find me the best logistics tech on the planet. Buy it." Robert Miller, his COO, spent a week doing intensive research. He came back to Jason, his face pale but excited. "Sir, I've found it," Miller said, placing a tablet on Jason's desk. "It's a new company. AuraLogix. Their platform is, well, it's black magic, sir. It seems to know what's going to happen. I ran a simulation of our Hudson Yards project through their demo. It would have saved us $80 million so far." Jason looked at the name. AuraLogix. Never heard of them. Are they for sale? "That's the thing, sir. They're private. Very secretive. The CEO is just Vance. But they're backed by Diana Hayes." The name gave Jason pause. Diana Hayes was old money, but she was a tech oracle. "Get them at the table," Jason ordered. "I want to acquire this company. Offer them $50 million. No, 100. Whatever it takes. This Vance's is about to have the payday of their life." Robert Miller nodded. "I've already reached out. They're hesitant to sell, but they've agreed to a partnership meeting, a final pitch, tomorrow. Their CEO will be there." "Good," Jason sneered. "I'll go myself. Time to show this Vance what real power looks like." He was picturing some 20-something tech bro in a hoodie. He was already planning how he would intimidate him into a sale. He had no idea he was about to walk into his own execution. The meeting was set for 10 a.m. at the neutral territory of Diana Hayes' office in the Chrysler Building. Jason Thorne prided himself on making an entrance. He arrived at 10:05 a.m., a deliberate power move flanked by his COO Robert Miller and 2 lawyers. He strode into the conference room, a sleek, sun-filled space overlooking the city. Diana Hayes was seated at the head of the massive oak table, exuding quiet authority. To her right sat Marcus Cole, whom Jason vaguely recognized from a TechCrunch photo. To Diana's left sat the CEO. Jason stopped. His practiced, arrogant smile froze on his face. The blood drained from it. He stared, his mind unable to process the image. It was Emma. But it wasn't his Emma. The woman who met his gaze wasn't the pale, quiet wife in beige cashmere. This Emma wore a sharp navy blue Tom Ford suit that screamed authority. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, elegant chignon. Her eyes, which he had always dismissed as soft, were now cold, clear, and utterly unreadable. They held a glint of steel he had never seen before. "Jason?" she said, her voice smooth and even. Not a trace of fear, not a hint of surprise. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." Jason couldn't move. "Emma, what is this, a joke?" "I assure you, Mr. Thorne," Diana Hayes said, her voice cutting through the tension. "We do not joke about 9-figure valuations. Please sit." Your COO is holding his briefcase very awkwardly. Robert Miller, looking utterly bewildered, shuffled into a chair. Jason, on autopilot, sank into the seat opposite his ex-wife. You, Jason stammered, pointing a finger. You're Vance. Emma Vance. Yes, she replied, folding her hands on the table. I am the founder and CEO of AuraLogix. Marcus is my CTO. Jason's mind was a screeching tire fire. Useless. The woman he'd thrown out the decoration had built the company he was now desperate to acquire. He had wiped the server. You stole this, he hissed, his face turning a blotchy red. This is my IP. You stole this from Thorn Legacy. I'll have you in court by noon. Emma didn't flinch. She simply slid a tablet across the table. You'll want to look at that. Page 4 specifically. Jason grabbed it. It was a digital file. Timestamps. Code commits. The original kernel of Aura, dated 3 years ago, backed up to a private cloud server long before the divorce. Long before he'd even met Serafina. And if you'll turn to page 5, Emma continued, you'll see the original source code for the logistics platform Thorn Legacy currently uses. The one I wrote for you in 2015 as a wedding anniversary gift. The one you told your board you developed. I believe the digital signature on that code is mine. Jason went white. She had him. She had proof that he had not only destroyed her new work, but had built his company's foundation on her old work. He had lied to his board. He had committed fraud. What do you want? He whispered, the bluster gone. You came here to acquire my company, Emma said. The answer is no. We need your platform, Emma. Robert Miller cut in, his voice desperate. The Hudson Yards project is sinking. We're losing millions a day. Name your price. A partnership, a licensing deal, anything. Emma looked at Miller, a flicker of something almost like pity in her eyes. Mr. Miller, AuraLogix is already in final negotiations for a contract with Kyo Nissin Global. They are your chief competitor for the Hudson Yards West Steel contract. Once we sign with them, they will undercut you by 40%. You'd do that? Jason looked at her, searching for the woman he knew. You'd ruin me after everything I gave you. Gave me? Emma's voice was dangerously quiet. You gave me a 400-square-foot apartment and a new last name. I'll tell you what, I will license Aura to Thorn Legacy, on one condition. What? Jason breathed. You resign. Effective immediately, you will announce to the board that you are stepping down for personal reasons, and you will transfer your controlling shares into a blind trust managed by a third party, which Ms. Hayes and I will select. Jason's jaw dropped. You're insane. You're trying to steal my company. No, Emma said, standing up. I'm saving it. You are the cost, Jason, not the asset. Your arrogance, your archaic methods, and your blindness are driving Thorn Legacy into the ground. I'm offering your COO, your shareholders, and your 10,000 employees a lifeline. Jason shot to his feet. Never. I will never let you housewife, take what I built. I think you will, Emma said. And what makes you so sure? He spat. A new voice, sharp and accented, came from the doorway. Because if you don't, I'll have you arrested for fraud by 4 p.m. Jason spun around. Serafina Rothschild Thorne stood there, her arms crossed. Beside her were 2 men Jason didn't recognize. Serafina, Jason choked out. What are you doing here? I've been following you, darling, Serafina said, walking into the room. She completely ignored Emma and looked straight at Jason. I knew you were coming to grovel to this new tech company. I just didn't realize the drama would be this delicious. She turned to Emma. Emma Vance, a pleasure. Serafina Thorne, you are a masterpiece. What is this, Serafina? Jason demanded. This, Serafina said, is a hostile takeover. You see, Jason, while you were playing Monopolist, I was talking to your board. They're not happy with you. The Hudson Yards fiasco, the cooked books, and now this. She gestured to the tablet Emma had provided. You lied about your foundational IP. That's shareholder fraud. You've been working against me. Jason looked at his wife, his face a mask of betrayal. I'm a venture capitalist, Jason. I invest in winners. You are no longer a winner, Serafina said, her voice flat. These gentlemen are from the SEC. I took the liberty of sharing some of my concerns about Thorn Legacy's accounting. The concerns I got from Emma's old files. Jason's legs gave out. He collapsed back into his chair. Serafina had been one step ahead of everyone. She hadn't just been a trophy wife. She'd been a corporate raider in plain sight. She hadn't been targeting Emma. She'd been targeting Jason's company from the day they met. Serafina turned to Emma. So Vance, you want him out. I want him out. It seems we have a common goal. Let's make a deal. You give me AuraLogix. I'll give you Jason's head on a platter. Together we can run this city. Jason looked on a broken man. His ex-wife and his current wife were carving up his life like a roast. Emma looked at Serafina, the woman who had in her own way been as ruthless as Jason. Then she looked at Jason, the man who had called her useless. She smiled. A real cold and calculating smile. I think you're both misunderstanding the situation, Emma said, retaking her seat. I don't want to run this city with you, Serafina. I'm here to run it myself. The conference room, once a symbol of high-powered negotiation, now felt like a pressurized vacuum. The air was thick with the silent, crackling energy of a billion-dollar chess game that had just been upended. Jason was a ghost. His face ashen, his body rigid in his chair. Serafina, for the first time, had a look of genuine predatory confusion. Her perfectly applied mask of cool control was slipping. What? Serafina said, her voice a low, dangerous purr that had lost its confidence. Did you just say? She tried to recover to frame Emma's statement as a foolish miscalculation. Darling, I don't think you understand the offer. I have the SEC. I have the board. I am offering you a seat at the table after we dispose of him. She flicked a dismissive hand toward her husband. Together we run his empire. Emma met her gaze, and for the first time Serafina understood she was not looking at a jilted wife. She was looking at a general. I'm not interested in a partnership, Serafina. Emma reiterated, her voice as calm and cutting as a surgical laser. You came here to execute a hostile takeover. You brought your own knives, you prepped your own allies. It was a good plan, but you made a critical, fatal error. And what was that? Serafina challenged. You assumed Jason's company was the prize, Emma said. It's not. It's an anchor. A monumentally expensive, badly managed, sinking anchor. Emma turned to the main monitor, the one that had been set up for their pitch. Marcus, bring up the Hudson Yards simulation again. Run comparison model 7B, the one with the Keo-Neeson data. Marcus, who had been watching with the quiet satisfaction of a programmer seeing his code run perfectly, typed a command. The screen lit up. It showed the Hudson Yards project visualized in a complex 3D model. A deep, bleeding red line tracked Thorn Legacy's current trajectory, project stalled penalties piling up at a rate of $5 million a day, a catastrophic $1.2 billion loss projected by Q4. Then a vibrant crystalline blue line appeared, charting an entirely different path. This, Marcus explained, his voice filling the room, is Keo-Neeson Global, our new client using the Aura platform. As we speak, their executive team is signing the contract. What does this mean? Emma asked, though she was directing the question to the room, her eyes fixed on the utterly broken Jason. It means that the dockworker strike in Hamburg you thought was bad luck. Aura predicted it 3 weeks ago. The concrete shortage in Mexico, Aura saw the supplier's material cost futures spike and flagged it as a high-risk event. She stood and walked slowly toward the screen, becoming a silhouette against the glowing blue line. It means that Keo-Neeson Global, your chief competitor for the Hudson Yards West Steel contract, not only anticipated the steel mill strike, but had already rerouted its entire supply chain through Turkey before the strike even happened. They will deliver their materials 3 months ahead of your original schedule. and 22% under your original budget. She turned back to the room. By Friday, when this deal is publicly announced, Thorn Legacy's stock, which is already fragile, will not just plummet. It will disintegrate. Your credit lines will be revoked. Your bonds will be downgraded to junk. Your main project will be dead, and your competitors will be using my technology to build it on your grave. She finally locked eyes with Serafina. And your shareholders. Serafina, your board, the SEC, what exactly will they be fighting over the scraps of a bankrupt company, your entire play, your leverage? It all hinges on Thorn Legacy having value. By the end of this week it won't. You'll have successfully taken over a shell. Congratulations. Serafina's face was chalk white. She had been outmaneuvered, outthought, and publicly humiliated. She had been playing chess while Emma was waging total war. You did this. Serafina whispered, her mind reeling. You built a $14 billion company just to destroy him. She pointed at Jason, who looked like he hadn't breathed in 5 minutes. Emma's expression hardened. Destroy him? No. You can't destroy a void. I am not a destroyer, Serafina. I am a builder. Her voice dropped, but it filled the room with a cold fury that was more terrifying than any scream. For 10 years I lived in that penthouse. I managed his life, I salvaged his deals, I wrote his speeches. And he called me decoration. He called me useless while sitting on a logistics platform I built in my spare time, a platform he was too arrogant and too ignorant to even ask me about. He runs a multi-billion-dollar corporation based on who he can bully in a meeting and how loud he can yell. That, she said, her voice ringing with finality, is useless. Jason flinched as if she had struck him. His word, was now a weapon turned back on him. I built Aura from the ashes of the life he burned down, Emma continued. And today I'm not here to destroy his company. I'm here to save it from him. Robert Miller, the COO, who had been watching this all unfold like a tennis match between gods, finally found his voice. It was shaky, desperate. Ms. Vance, Emma, please, if what you're saying is true, the company, my teams. There are 10,000 employees who had nothing to do with this. You just let them all go under. Emma's gaze softened instantly as she looked at him. No, Mr. Miller. Your teams, the engineers, the architects, the project managers, they are the only valuable asset Thorn Legacy has left. Jason was the liability. And that, she said, turning her attention back to the table, is why I am not here for a licensing deal, or a partnership, or an acquisition. She paused, letting the weight of the moment fill the room, letting every person hang on her next word. I am here to announce a merger. AuraLogix, which Forbes just valued at $14 billion, will be acquiring Thorn Legacy properties. For $1. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of a paradigm shattering. Jason looked up, his eyes wide and uncomprehending. A merger? A rescue, Emma corrected him. It's an act of mercy. We absorb your monumental debt. We save your projects. We keep your employees, Mr. Miller. We integrate the Aura platform across your entire infrastructure, making Thorn Legacy profitable within 6 months. The name will survive, but it will be as a wholly owned subsidiary of AuraLogix. Serafina let out a dry, bitter laugh. The board, Jason's board. They'll never approve this. It's an insult. It's a public execution. They'll fight you. Oh, they'll approve it, dear. Diana Hayes chimed in, speaking for the first time in an hour. Her voice was laced with amused satisfaction. You see, Serafina, while you were busy plotting a palace coup, I was busy buying. I've been quietly acquiring Thorn Legacy stock at its loser price for the last 6 months every time Jason's arrogance caused another dip. I am now the second largest shareholder right after Jason himself. She steepled her fingers, her gray eyes glittering. This merger, I'm voting yes. And my vote, along with the promise of saving the company from total annihilation, will lead the rest of the terrified rats right off Jason's sinking ship and onto Emma's lifeboat. You have no power here. Serafina's last ember of hope died. She was trapped. Emma walked slowly, deliberately, until she stood directly in front of her ex-husband. He was staring at the table, a broken man. She knelt just as he had forced her to feel small, so she was at eye level with the collapsed titan. "As for you, Jason," she said, her voice a soft, private whisper that was somehow the loudest thing in the room, "you will sign over your controlling shares. Not to a blind trust, not to the company. You will sign them over to me, to Emma Vance, personally." Jason's head snapped up, his eyes pleading. "Emma, please." "In exchange," she continued, ignoring him, "my signature will go on a private document. An agreement stating that AuraLogix will not pursue criminal charges against you for the IP theft of my original code. I will not release the file on page 5 of that tablet, the one that proves you committed shareholder fraud by lying about your foundational IP. I will give you my silence." She stood up, towering over him. "You will walk out of this building with nothing but the clothes you're wearing and a new ironclad non-disclosure agreement. An NDA that forbids you from ever saying my name or your own in a business context again. You will cease to exist." He heard it. He heard the echo of his own words. The terms of her exile now returned to him with perfect, devastating precision. "You're," he choked, "you're useless." Emma offered, her voice devoid of all emotion. "A cost, not an asset. A phase." She turned away from him. "And you, Serafina." Serafina, who had already risen ready to flee, froze. "You are a brilliant strategist. Ruthless. I can respect that. But you backed the wrong horse. Those SEC agents you brought—" Emma smiled, a real cold and calculating smile. "You can tell them that the new CEO of Thorn AuraDynamics will cooperate fully with their investigation. I'm sure they'll be very interested in the trades you made based on the insider information you gathered while you were busy plotting with the board. I imagine your time off the board will be quite permanent." Serafina, for the first time in her life, was speechless. She had been surgically, brilliantly, and completely removed from the equation. Emma slid a single piece of paper and a heavy gold pen across the oak table to Jason. It was the share transfer agreement. Jason Thorne stared at it. This was the end. The woman he had discarded, the decoration he had thrown away, had just dismantled his entire life in under an hour, using only her mind and his own arrogance against him. He saw the power, the brilliance, and the ice-cold justice. He saw the woman who had been there all along, the one he had been too blind to see. His hand, shaking, picked up the pen. The sound of the scratchy nib on the thick paper was the only sound. It was the sound of an empire falling. He signed his name. He signed his legacy away. Emma took the paper from his hand. She didn't look at it. She didn't look at him. She simply turned to Marcus and Diana. "It's done. Let's get to work." The moment the gold-nibbed pen left the paper, the suffocating tension in the room didn't just break. It evaporated. Jason Thorne slumped in his chair, not just a defeated CEO, but a hollow man. The signature had cost him his last ounce of adrenaline, leaving a gray, empty vessel. Serafina, on the other hand, was vibrating with a frigid, impotent rage. She watched Emma calmly take the document, fold it once, and slide it into a leather portfolio. "Well," Serafina spat, her voice a strained whisper, "you have your pound of flesh. I hope it keeps you warm." Emma didn't even look at her. She snapped the portfolio shut. "Marcus, please show Ms. Hayes to her car. I'll be down in a moment." She then turned not to her fallen enemies, but to the one man in the room who still mattered. "Mr. Miller?" Robert Miller, who looked as though he'd just survived a plane crash, stood straighter. Yes, Ms. Vance. The first all-hands meeting for Thorn Legacy staff is at 7 a.m. tomorrow. I'll need you to prep the entire executive leadership team. I want a full, unredacted report on all active projects, liabilities, and most importantly, all personnel. I want to know every architect, every engineer, and every project manager we have." Of course." Miller stammered, his mind already racing. He was being given orders. He had a purpose. He realized with a jolt, employed. "Good," Emma said. "I'll see you there." This exchange was the final brutal blow for Jason. He wasn't even an afterthought. He was simply over. His company was moving on without him before he had even left the room. "You can't just—" Serafina began, but Emma held up a hand. "It's done," Emma said, her voice final. She nodded to the SEC agents who were still standing by the door, quiet witnesses to the corporate execution. "Gentlemen, I believe Mrs. Thorne has some information for you regarding her concerns. I, as the new acting head of the company, will be in touch with your superiors tomorrow to schedule a full and transparent audit. We have nothing to hide." This one simple statement sealed Serafina's fate. Emma had framed herself as the transparent reformer, and Serafina as the disgruntled, possibly complicit party. The agents turned their cool, appraising gazes on her. Serafina Rothschild Thorne, the shark, was now chum. A silent security guard summoned by Diana's assistant appeared at the door. He gestured politely to Jason. Jason stood, his custom-tailored suit hanging on him like a shroud. He walked out of the room, past the art he had bought past the window overlooking the city he had claimed, and did not look back. He was a ghost, and he knew it. The fallout was immediate and seismic. The next morning, the financial world choked on its coffee. The Wall Street Journal headline was a cannon shot: "The war merger tech oracle AuraLogix acquires ailing giant Thorne legacy in shocking restructure. Jason Thorne ousted." The story was a masterpiece of controlled narrative. It painted a picture of a legacy company, Thorne Legacy Properties, that had been driven to the brink of insolvency by the reckless and archaic leadership of its founder. It detailed the spiraling losses of the Hudson Yards West project, the failure to adapt the hemorrhaging of cash. Then it introduced the savior AuraLogix, the secretive, brilliant AI company that had, in an act of profound strategic mercy, acquired the entire corporation for a symbolic dollar, saving 10,000 jobs and absorbing billions in debt. But it was the second-page story in Bloomberg that broke the internet. The oracle has a name. Vance is Emma Vance, ex-wife of ousted CEO Jason Thorne. The narrative exploded. It was electric. Every talk show, every podcast, every financial blog was dominated by the story. The quiet, invisible socialite, the decoration Jason had so publicly discarded, was the secret architect of the most disruptive technology in decades. The story of her being thrown out, her work wiped, and her rise from a garage in Queens. It wasn't just a business story. It was a legend. Emma Vance became an instant global icon of resilience and quiet, terrifying competence. The fates of the fallen were swift. Jason Thorne vanished. True to Emma's word, he was erased. The ironclad NDA, combined with the public humiliation, muzzled him completely. He was spotted once by a paparazzi lens at a small cafe in the Cayman Islands, looking gray-aged and utterly average. He was no longer a titan. He was a "where are they now" story. The exclusive clubs he belonged to, the Metropolitan, the Union, all quietly revoked his membership, citing conduct unbecoming. He wasn't just broke. He was, for a man built on ego, something far worse: irrelevant. Serafina Rothschild Thorne, as predicted, fought. She hired the most expensive legal team in New York, claiming the merger was predatory. But she had been outplayed. Emma and Diana Hayes were prepared. Emma, in her first act as CEO, opened the books completely to the SEC. This transparency revealed not only Jason's fraud, but also Serafina's own questionable trades and her attempts to leverage the board. The multiple shareholder lawsuits which Serafina had encouraged pivoted and targeted her as a board member who had breached her fiduciary duty. She was trapped in a legal quagmire of her own making, spending the next 3 years, and what was left of her fortune, fending off charges. Her reputation as a winner was permanently shattered. But Emma wasn't focused on the past. She was focused on the future. The day after the merger, she walked into the penthouse headquarters at 15 Central Park West. The staff was terrified, lined up in the lobby expecting a purge. Emma walked to the center of the vast marble hall, Robert Miller at her side. She looked at the anxious faces. "Good morning," she said, her voice amplified by the room's acoustics. "My name is Emma Vance. You all knew my predecessor. You knew his way of doing things. As of today, that way is over." She paused. "I'm not here to fire you. I'm here to unleash you. For too long, this company has been run as a one-man show. It has relied on ego instead of data. That ends now. The Aura platform is the new heart of this company. But you," she said, making eye contact with the lead architects and engineers, "you are its blood. I'm not here to save this company. I'm here to give you the tools to save it yourselves." The first thing she did was rebrand Thorn Aura Dynamics. The press called it a master stroke of branding. She kept the Thorn name, a deliberate move to show the 10,000 employees that their legacy, their work, their projects was worth saving. She had only purged the man, not the mission. Aura was the new guiding principle: intelligence, data, and predictive power. The Arctic White office, once a cold museum to one man's ego, was transformed. She tore down the walls, creating open-plan innovation hubs. Massive wall-sized data screens were installed, streaming Aura's real-time logistics and market predictions. The atmosphere changed from fear to a buzzing electric energy. And in a small windowless room behind the main kitchen, her old hobby closet, she created the Founder's Room. It was preserved exactly as it had been, only now behind glass. Her old second-hand laptop, a stained coffee mug, and a single-framed packet of instant ramen noodles. Below it, a small brass plaque read, "Never forget where you started, and never let anyone else define where you're going." It became a pilgrimage site for new hires. Her crowning achievement was the Hudson Yards West project, the very thing that had sunk Jason. She didn't just save it, she made it a global showpiece. She personally flew to Tokyo and renegotiated the deal with Kyo Nissan, turning her former competitor into her biggest partner. Using Aura, she rerouted the entire global supply chain, optimizing every single screw, every pane of glass. The project was finished 3 months ahead of its new schedule and $200 million under the revised budget. It was an unprecedented triumph that silenced every critic. 1 year later, Forbes released its annual World's Most Powerful People issue. The cover was Emma Vance. She wasn't pictured in an office. She stood on the 100th floor observation deck of the newly completed Thorn Aura Tower at Hudson Yards West. The wind whipped her hair, but her gaze was steady. Behind her, the New York skyline, her skyline fanned out like a kingdom she had not inherited, but built. The headline was simple, bold, and universe-altering. Emma Vance, at 34, the youngest CEO in the country, didn't just break the glass ceiling, she built a new one. Inside, the feature story detailed her incredible journey. But it was the final paragraph, a direct quote from Emma, that was pinned to 1 million bulletin boards and inspiration blogs by the end of the day. "For 10 years, she said, her voice clear in the recording, "I was told I was a support system. I was decoration. I was useless." It's easy to believe the labels people give you, especially when they're the only voices you're allowed to hear. But a label is just a word. It's not a destiny. The world is built by people who were told they couldn't. The future is built by those who are underestimated. My advice: let them underestimate you. Let them call you useless. Let them throw you away. Let them lock you in a gilded cage. They'll forget that cages have locks, and locks have keys, and they just handed you all the time in the world to find it. Then, build your empire from the ashes. And don't forget to send them an invitation to the grand opening. And that is the incredible story of Emma Vance. She was pushed out, dismissed, and left with nothing. But they forgot one thing: you can't erase a brilliant mind. Her story proves that your value isn't determined by what someone else says about you. It's determined by what you do when no one is watching. What did you think of Jason's downfall? Were you shocked by Serafina's ultimate play? Let me know your favorite twist in the comments below. If you love this story of resilience and ultimate triumph, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you want more true-life dramas and incredible stories of people who turn their lives around, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. You won't want to miss what we have coming up next. Thank you for listening.